work on Land Rover, Range Rovers all the time, right? So I got a customer that we did some repairs on his vehicle, which he brought a used rack and pinion, and we installed it in the Range Rover. And he took the car to the dealership because we were unable to program the steering column and so it can be ride properly with the dynamic control system that they have on the vehicle. We're using the same software as the dealership used, which is the SDD software, the JLR SDD software, up to 2017. So he took it to the dealer, and what the dealer is telling him and what he understands, it's totally two different things that what's written down in the paperwork. They're saying that when we put the rack in, it's probably broke the clock spring, which, and I know that didn't happen. And then we put the rack and pinion in lean. The rack and pinion was installed incorrectly. There's only one way to put the rack and pinion, but I just want to demonstrate that we do work with the SDD software. So I don't know what he's telling me. So I'm going to take a ride down to the dealership. So I want to hear that from the service writer that we put the rack and pinion in wrong, because I know there's no such thing. Some customers, just want to prove a point. I told them we'll take the car back from the dealership. We'll put a new rack and pinion in the vehicle. And if we put a new rack and pinion in and program it and it doesn't work, he doesn't have to pay. But if we put a new rack and pinion in and program it and it does work, he has to pay for it, because he bought a used rack and pinion out of the salvage yard. People do that sometimes so they can save money, but that is what he's saying. And that is the course of action and the step that I want to take, which he doesn't want to take that. I am not going to pay the dealer for something that I didn't do. So yes, back in the Range Rover that the customer took to the dealership. We got the vehicle back to the shop here. I went over there to the dealership and had a pretty intense conversation with the service writer. And apparently, the customer was misinformed on the procedure that needs to go into the vehicle to get the vehicle fixed. Customer told me that the Range Rover dealership told him that the rack and pinion, the used rack and pinion that he bought, that he had us install, was installed incorrectly. But that turned out not to be the case. What the dealer said is that probably the steering angle sensor is probably damaged and it's probably not doing what it's supposed to do on the vehicle. But I installed the rack myself, so I always take precautions in making sure that I keep the steering wheel nice and straight and locked. That way we don't have any problem with the steering angle sensor when come time to finish up the process with the work. So we confronted the service writer, and the customer was hoping that he was under the impression that he would be able to talk to the technician that works at the Range Rover dealership. I informed him that was not the case. I don't think you'll be able to talk to them, but I'm going to go to the dealership with you also so we can see if we can get a little bit of clarity on the information that was submitted to you. So apparently what the service writer told him and what the customer understood was completely two different things. A lot of times when customers have to spend money, they whatever they hear goes in this ears and comes out the other one. So we got the vehicle back at the shop here, and he's fully aware. The dealer told him exactly the same thing that I told him even before that we went over there. That the dealership said that if we're gonna get involved in doing the work, we would have to replace the rack and pinion, and by doing so, we would also have to do the alignment on the vehicle. You're not going to be able to take the vehicle to an alignment that you already had, that you think you have some kind of warranty, and then bring it back for us to program. The way these things work is that once you put a new rack and pinion in it, or you put a used rack and pinion, you have to rewrite the ID to that rack and pinion motor. It's a module that's all built in one. It's the motor, the steering, and the rack and pinion. You got to write the ID to that module itself with the SDD software. So, and also you got to do the alignment at the same time, and then you have to set the steering angle sensor in that position, and you have to lock it in the module. That way, if you go left and right, once the repair is already done of the vehicle, you don't get any kind of mill lights or anything like that on it. So the problem is that I think that the rack is bad. Once you start the vehicle up, there's no dynamic lights or HDC lights are on. When you go to the right side, it's nice and smooth. But when you turn it halfway to the left side, that is when you have the problem. So the rack is binding somewhere. It's not being able to be installed. And the dealer also tell him that, it could have been that the junkyard sold him a part that was not specific to the vehicle. And, the customer is, he's bent a certain way. And, unfortunately, he's not able to get it fixed there. I did tell him that he's going to need some rear tires because the vehicle tends to pull a little bit when you drive it. That could be because of the alignment. But you can see that these tires are probably worn out, and the tires are actually leaning, as you can see right there. So I would recommend replacing the tires also. And once the rack is installed, we get a full alignment, and then we'll be able to program the module and have everything locked in place. So the deal is, I am going to put the rack and pinion, I'm going to buy a new rack and pinion and put it in the vehicle. If the rack and pinion works, the customer pays for it. If it does not work out and they're still having some problems with the vehicle, with the dynamic issues, then the customer doesn't have to pay for it. But I'm really sure that there's something wrong with the rack and pinion. We're going to get a new rack and pinion. It's probably out of China or somewhere like that to install in this vehicle. So that's what's going on with it. I just wanted to keep you guys updated with the process. As you can see, I'm going to get in here. Got the key in my pocket. Hit the button. And you can see it has a high idle also. It does have an intake leak. Does have an intake manifold leak that we need to address, but that'll be at a later time. But that's what's going on with it. Just a check engine light. Like if you turn it right, it's smooth, but if you go left, then you might see the HCC light. See, it's actually binding right now, and that light might pop up. Let me see if I can get it to do it. I'm hoping I can get it to come on. It may have to be in gear for me to do that, right? So, yep, there you go. See, here comes the light. See, it's binding, and as soon as the steering wheel pops and it is able to make it all the way, then you have the HDC light comes on. And after the light comes on, then it's able to go back and forth freely. So something is going on with the inside of rack and pinion itself. So it's actually in fail-safe mode. And you can see HDC not available, stabilizing control fault, drive not available, and that's the kind of things that happen right there. So I think it's going to be needing a rack, and I'll definitely try to work with the customer and in order for us to get a brand new rack from a reputable source and install it in the vehicle and see how things work out. It's going to cost a pretty penny though, but I'll keep you guys updated with the process.